This is the Concession Stand Podcast. I would like to welcome my friend here, Jax. We're going to talk about some entertainment stuff, mostly. We have a mix of movies and some games and also board games. We wanted to touch up on board games a while ago because I don't think I've played anything for a year, 2 years. Like last time I played an actual board game would have to be 2 years.
I've played stuff like Uno quite a lot, actually. Like Uno is timeless, and it's just, some games can be short, some long. You can just stop when you all get bored, and it's easy to set up websites for it. So you can play with people abroad. But then there's stuff that just takes a long time. There's a lot of tear down and set up, like Monopoly. But even that's still fun if you have the whole gang together. It just depends on everybody's circumstances and stuff.
Yeah. You did bring up a good point, though, about most of the time when you do play board games with friends, you can do it online now. And I was wondering about, how many times have you played an actual board game, physical? Because I do know of a software called Tabletop Sim that allows you to basically play any board game you want online. And it's significantly cheaper.
Yeah, I have the VR version of it, and that's a good game. Some of the controls are a little weird, and I wish it was just more of a pick-up, set-down, actual board games would be. But it's still pretty useful. And it just depends on which of your friends have it, I guess. But I do like the software quite a lot.
Being able to pay $15 to have access to $1,000 worth of board games, I think, is the real reason why people get it. And also that they don't have to have a big event or anything, or have to arrange things at their house. But that's also the fun of it, is having people at your house and having snacks and being able to have a good time physically, instead of basically being in a call online and then playing a game just over a Discord call.
Yeah, half the charm of stuff like Monopoly is being able to physically crush people's souls. You can watch the look on their face as you take a property you're looking at. You can watch them go straight from having a good time to their soul is just in a million pieces.
Yeah, I personally have not played Monopoly in a physical setting for that exact reason, because I hate doing it. I hate doing it, and I also hate being inflicted upon. And I've found that actually, it feels more because I haven't done that, I can't really gauge this, but when I play online Monopoly with friends, or online board games, they tend to rage more.
Oh yeah, because I guess it's easier to rage when there's nobody right in front of you, and there's not any direct repercussion for screaming when somebody does a draw 4 at you.
If it's a rando online on Uno and he screams at you for playing a draw 4, you can't really, you don't get any repercussion for it. You don't have to conform to you don't have to be polite because you're right in front of the person, or if you're good friends with them or anything. It's the internet. No one cares. So you can just yell at anyone you want.
And there's the matter of playing it with random people, and there's playing it with your actual friends, and the different settings that those would create.
Yeah.
And there's also just the convenience, because you can go to online Uno at any time. You just search Uno on Google, and you get 5 different sites to do it with, Uno Freak, or the official Uno one.
Yeah, the one I played on my Xbox was Uno Rabbids. That one makes my friends want to throw out their consoles. And there's also Ubisoft rules is what people call them, where you can also have if you play a 7, you can change your deck with someone else's and exchange them. And if you play a 0, it rotates everyone's decks clockwise.
Oh god.
It makes the game last 20 more minutes. And sometimes Uno games can go on forever if people aren't.
Either 5 seconds or 5 hours. There's no in between.
Yeah. And I found that there is you could basically, if you don't have the rule where they have to force, if they draw a card and they have to play it so that they can get rid of it. If you don't have a rule that stops them from doing that, they can just keep making themselves what they call fat, where they just get a bunch of cards and then play 1/7 and then change it with someone else.
Oh yeah, I have friends who would just draw cards the whole game. I was in one where somebody had 60 cards and like every single draw 4 on the board. So like, it can go on for a while if you don't if you don't rule it correctly.
Yeah. Is there any other
Usually
board
games
games?
like that, everybody just ditches after like a couple minutes, like half an hour.
Is there any other board games other than Monopoly that you've played?
Yes, but I'm not sure which one it was. It was I don't think it was the Game of Life.
Game of Life. I remember playing that on a Kindle, but like the last game I played physically was Star Wars Rebellion. It was like a strategy game. I never figured out how to play it because the rules were like 6 books long, and I was dumb enough to think, oh yeah, my family will definitely want to sit through this, and they did not, and I had to find some other people that would be willing to try and learn the rules, and we tried. Oh dear, did we try. And it took us 2 hours to figure out that we had been doing it all wrong and that it didn't really matter what we did, so we just kind of packed it up and never played it again. Although
At that
it
point,
was
I would just stop.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the other, I don't know if this counts fully, if either of these fully count, but the last couple board games I think I played were Jenga and Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like, does it count as a board game? It does.
I mean, like,
it's like very paper and pencil,
like,
and you could play
I
it
would
just.
it with board games is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not a card game, and it's not a family board game. It's, I guess, what really is the role-playing game. That, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons was the origin for RPG.
Yeah.
Like, am I wrong? Because it went along with board games, card-playing games, and then a role-playing game, RPG, came from Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Because you could play that just with pencil and paper. You didn't have to have a board, or maybe you could have dice. You probably should, but you could just theoretically go off of paper and pencil and then a dice, which was extremely easy to do, but could be like super complicated, and is still played to this day with different editions and all that stuff. I did actually play a D&D match with a couple of friends, and I was so confused because it was my first time, and just some of the strangest stuff happens in that game if your friends are creative enough.
That game is a blast, especially if you have a good dungeon master. The best ones will let you roll for anything. Basically, just if it's like stupid and it's within reason and it doesn't break like the storyline, then they should just let it happen. And that's what makes it fun. It's just the really wacky, stupid stuff that happens along the way. It's the stories that you're able to tell about your D&D group and what they did.
Yeah, I wish I could talk about mine, but I barely remember it. My character was a pyromaniac, and the flaw he had was anything that had fur on it, he would immediately try to light on fire. Unfortunately, one of the other party members had like a pet wolf. Thankfully, every time I rolled, it did not ever catch on fire.
What are the odds of that?
Very lucky. Very lucky odds. But yeah, there was a point where there was like some like orcs or something, and there were other enemies that came up that were wearing fur coats, and then it would just do like double the damage because I would just instantly set them on fire.
So I guess it's useful in that regard.
Of course, then there's like the dungeon master we had was very creative, but the problem was one of our other party members was kind of manipulating how the story went, and the dungeon master got kind of mad because she kept seducing like the enemies like every time because her like charisma or whatever is like at the highest, and she would roll, and every time she would get a high roll, so she would always win with those encounters and just seduce them to make them just go away. Like that, it broke the dungeon master how many times that happened. So the story would never progress.
better roll a fucking 50. They just let them try, and if they die, then too bad.
Movies. I saw 1917, and you saw Sonic. And
1917.
yeah, and you also did see 1917. I didn't see Sonic because I didn't have interest as much as my brother does. He is very into Sonic, so he went there like on the second day, and he said it was okay. Could you?
It was not bad. Like, it wasn't like by any means like a super good movie. Like, you know, it was fine. It was like it was a kids movie. It's what you'd expect it to be, pretty much. Like, it's not really ultra special in what it is, but I guess that is the fact that it's a Sonic movie at all. That was its own merit, and like why people went. Because, you know, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. You grew up with him. He's got a movie. You gotta see it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the audience it's going for is partly children, and then also nostalgia, because the ones they're capitalizing on, from what I can tell, is the older versions, not the newer versions.
Like, when they made his first design, actually, basically they sort of been on record saying, oh, they knew that, like, the executives knew that Sonic fans were going to hate the design. But what they did not anticipate was that everybody was going to hate the design.
Yeah.
And when they saw that, they're like, wait, shoot, guys, we gotta do this again. And then, of course, they delayed the movie and then gave us the design that people were more satisfied with.
What I heard about the production behind that movie was that the animators were telling the executives that the original design wasn't going to work, and they had to follow through with it.
Was the one they wanted to do, and they already had it ready. They drafted it, they pitched it, and they said no. And they pretty much made them do the crappy design everybody hated. And then when everybody hated it, they're like, okay, fine, and you can do it. And then it worked out. So it was just a...
And the thing is,
the executives doing
the real sad thing, though, is that the animation studio that had to make that change, like, around Christmas time, it closed down and laid off a bunch of people before the final revisions were done. And
they pretty much fired everybody there. And they fired the whole studio after they finished the movie. And they did have to shut down the studio, not directly because of the Sonic movie, but just because of other stuff happening at the time. But it's just kind of sad that those animators had to go through all that crunch time, and then directly after they're out of the job.
Yeah.
That's not a fun position to be in.
So, I saw 1917, which is a World War I movie, with one of my friends, which is also a World War I and II buff. He really loves the history of those wars, and he is very familiar with it, because his family has been part of both world wars, and like he has a Gewehr rifle with blood still on the bayonet, which I think is cool, and he also has a gas mask and a lot of other little trinkets, and he came and saw it with me, and he really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it, because the main, not a gimmick per se, but the main thing of it is that it's supposed to be shot all in one continuous shot. Of course, that's not the truth. There are cuts in there, and sometimes I noticed them, but they made it
like it's supposed to be
feel like it's... Yeah, they made it feel like as if it's like through the progress of 2 days. That's like, how much time goes through in real time.
Setting of the movie, it's one shot. Like, there's cuts, of course, because, you know, it'd be pretty much impossible to do one take of that whole movie. But, like, in the setting and actual, like, confinement of the movie, it's all one event after the other. It's one continuous streamed thing. Which, it's not, this isn't the first time it's been done. It was done with, the Birdman movie a few years ago. But, I really didn't, it was kind of cool. I've never seen a movie, I personally didn't see any other ones that tried it. And they did it very well with this one. Mm-hmm. And it just worked really well for the type of movie they were making.
Yeah. I think the action in the movie is, like, it brings another sense of the word intense. You could say that a Michael Bay movie with a bunch of explosions could be intense, quote unquote. But that's what you're going to find on the back of the DVD from the critic, saying, oh, it's an intense thrill ride. And it's like, well, it's not really intense, because we know it's going to happen. And it's not, it's not tensing us up.
Like, cheap explosions, and then there's intense from, I don't want this character I like to die.
Exactly.
He's doing really well. Like, there's a lot of emotional weight to, like, everything that happens in that.
Yeah. And,
like,
of course,
you don't really
like...
know if he's going to get shot or not. He's just doing his best. It's...
Yeah, and, like, the actual, like, gunshots and the threats that come up, they aren't just, like, entire... This is World War I we're talking about. We're talking about bolt-action rifles where they fire once and then they have to cycle. Maybe there's an MG, but other than artillery and, sorry, my tongue got really dry there. Artillery and the bolt-action rifles, you're not fighting against much in the movie, other than just the terrain and just how terrible No Man's Land was portrayed, like, very accurately in this movie. It's haunting, and it's not super, like, exaggerated, or it's made to look very fake. It looks exactly like we expect it would, and it's very haunting that that's how it looked like back then, and very accurate. But like I was saying with the gunshots in this movie, they feel like they could possibly kill off the character. They feel very threatening because you know, you see the character stress out trying to get behind a piece of cover and trying to figure out where the person was shooting them from, and then you have to worry hopefully that they don't get shot in the process. I can't spoil anything though for the audience listening about the movie and how those fights go or how the movie ends or anything. But the actual, like, fights that they have in there are very intense. They're not super loud or very cartoonish. They are very real, I think is a good way to put it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like, there's a scene where, like, a plane comes down, like there's like a dogfight. And I'm not gonna go too far into detail there, but that was intense. That was cool. Like, that plane crashes down, like, right next to them, through a barn.
Yeah, it was a very popular choice for the trailers.
Yeah. I actually didn't see any of the trailers. I didn't know the movie existed for a while. But so by the time I did, I already wanted to see it, so I went out to it.
Yeah. I saw the first trailer when they released, like, a teaser for it, and I was immediately hooked. It's like World War I, and it has a great, like, visual setup and also a plot setup. Like, I'm down. Like, it's World War I. I gotta see this. It's not another action movie. Like, it's not another Fast and Furious movie or anything like that. Yeah, overall, it's a very, very well made movie.
Oh, incredibly, yeah.
So moving on, we also wanted to talk about some upcoming games that have been either delayed, worked on, had some drama behind them, or just maybe something that hasn't been revealed much and is supposed to come out this year. I wanted to start with Cyberpunk 2077. Jax, are you familiar with the development behind that?
Not very. I haven't followed the Cyberpunk stuff too much, because I haven't actually played any of them. But I've heard some stuff about it.
Cyberpunk 2077 is actually going to be, I think there was, like, a sort of, like, text adventure game that they had. I don't think so. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure they don't. But Cyberpunk 2077 is the first video game for it. It's actually based on a Dungeons and Dragons sort of game. It was a role-playing game. And it was of a different year. But it is the same universe, though. And they're taking a lot of influences from that RPG and bringing it over to video game form. they've delayed it like I think twice, and it was supposed to come out like this spring and summer, and then they pushed it back to like October, which sucks. I really hope to play that over the summer.
Oh yeah.
That would have been a great time.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people were talking about how they were kind of disappointed with the delay, or like, oh, that would have happened right on my birthday or during a break. Yeah, I've been hearing people talk about that and a few other games that have been delayed recently.
So, you told me that Nintendo Direct was going to come out this week for a certain game.
Oh yeah, so like just today, or at the time of recording at least, they announced that they're doing an Animal Crossing Direct on the 20th. And that game, like, they've revealed many things about it, like generic stuff, like what it looks like and features of the village and stuff, but they've been a little bit quiet about more specific details and like what new things exactly they are adding, besides like the crafting system and stuff. Like, it's gotten to the point where if they show like a new piece of furniture, or like, oh, that's a new sofa, people will like freak out just because they're so deprived of like real content to talk about that they just kind of talk about the little things. And hopefully the Direct is going to actually shine light on like some big features. There's a lot of people who've been looking forward to that since it was announced in like 2019 and then delayed a couple times, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. Buying that game day one because I played through New Leaf like a couple years ago. And
I
that
also
was a good
played
time.
through New Leaf. I think, from what I can tell from watching the stuff about Animal Crossing, is that there is going to be a lot more to do. And I'm not talking about like chores, just chores, but like in New Leaf, basically what the daily routine was: find the money rock where you can get all the gems and stuff. Maybe go to the coffee shop and do the job thing, and maybe figure out turnip sales and do some other miscellaneous stuff. And then if you have nothing else to do, then you fish and like find bugs for like forever. And it didn't really seem all that great. Like, not. It was
Well, like,
great
when,
game,
once you
but
already
like
had all the golden tools and you were already satisfied with how your town looked, there was not much else for you to do, unless you had friends and you wanted to visit their towns or go to the island.
Yeah, but with this new one, you're starting from scratch and you could constantly be improving. So that means you can constantly be playing instead of going through a daily routine although it is healthier probably for you for like play maybe an hour or two and then you go through the daily routine and you're basically done with the game, and anything additional you do is basically free time. But yeah, there should be some more stuff to do, and I think that's what they're bringing.
They're putting in like survival, like it's kind of a survival game in some aspects, like just crafting and stuff now.
I think it's more crafting for like furniture and stuff like that, and having outdoor things, which I really like.
Yeah, like you have to craft your own tools for a while until you can like eventually have shops set up, I think. Like a wooden, like stone axes and stuff. You can, of course, the pole vault, you can get across rivers before you have bridges. And you kind of have to improvise for a while and make survival-y type gear until you can eventually like lay down paths.
That was a big request for people, wasn't it?
Yeah, because like in New Leaf, there wasn't really an actual path. What you would have to do is that there's this like pixel decal system where you could put like on a 16 by 16 grid or whatever, you could make little patterns. And what people would do is they just make it like stone or like cobblestone and then just place down a bunch of patterns on the ground in their town in order to make paths.
Seems very tedious.
Like, it worked, but they looked all pixely and it wasn't the best solution. But in this, they're actually making like a dedicated concrete path system, so it'll actually look nice and stuff.
To wrap things up, probably the big one for gaming in general is a new Halo game. And when a new Halo game comes out, you know it has to be big, it has to be strong. Problem is that there hasn't been all that much advertisement for it. Other than there's like one trailer, there's like one teaser of like the warthog going over like some fields and stuff like that and passing by, and the Master Chief showing up. And then there was a second teaser which just showed what we already know, that there was another that there was another chief appearance, and then like it showed off the ring, and then he ran out, and then it ends there, and there was no other information. We don't know if it's going to be like a single player thing again, or it's going to be going to the roots, quote unquote, or it's going to be an open world. My theory is that they're going to try and take a spin on it and do sort of a different genre. Not like it's going to be FPS, of course. But they might take a open world, or like not a survival, but like one of those RPGs where basically you have to like help build up settlements or something, or outposts, and reclaim an area. I really hope it doesn't do that, because that would just betray the identity of Halo, of being the FPS father of games. So to wrap things up, once and for all, do you have any ending thoughts on the stuff we discussed, Jax?
It's a good question. I can't really think of anything like big to summarize at all, because we kind of went over a lot of broad stuff. Like for movies, I haven't really seen a lot of releases besides those two. And then for games, of course, there's the ones that are coming up. I would have talked about things that released recently, and I don't know if I'm just like pulling a blank here, but I can't really think of a lot of big studio releases.
There haven't been very many studio releases recently of big stuff, because that's just kind of the drought. It's just after Christmas. It's usually we have to wait until spring or summer, or until fall again, until it's like, that's why people call when October comes around, they call it Broketober, because all of the gaming stuff goes around fall for some reason.
Yeah.
So that they can sell it there, and then maybe make a Christmas edition, or they release it for Christmas. And yeah. It's quite a long wait.
Yeah, and then in that time, usually there's like smaller stuff from individual studios or people. Like 2019 had stuff like Piku Niku or Hypnospace Outlaw, and Garfield Kart Fast and the Furriest, but that's
Jax,
besides the point.
We're gonna end it there before we start talking about Garfield, because you know it's gonna take me like another 10 minutes. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that for 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes will be gone, and we'll be just talking about that game in particular. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. This is Concession Stand.
Thank you for visiting the Concession Stand. Please do not forget the soggy pretzel we left you for $2. Thank you.